Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving right into the exact moment a literal cosmic grudge is born. We're going to break down the anatomy of an absolutely epic curse. So picture the scene for a second. The blazing guardians of the worlds, we're talking the absolute celestial heavyweights of the universe here, are making their way back from what is basically the ultimate royal matchmaking event. They're returning from the Swayamvara of Brima's daughter, the incredibly beautiful Damayanti. Now, if you're not familiar, a Swayamvara is this massive, high-stakes ceremony where a royal bride gets to choose her husband from a huge gathering of esteemed suitors. Well, the festivities have wrapped up, a winner has been chosen, and these celestial VIPs are finally heading home. But our inciting incident, the exact spark that's going to ignite this massive tragedy, is literally just walking through the door.
Which kind of brings up a huge question. What actually happens when a celestial being arrives entirely too late to claim his prize? I mean, we've all been late to a party, right? You miss the speeches, maybe you miss the food, but rarely does showing up late spark a multi-generational epic tragedy. Well, as the gods are traveling along the road, they bump into this figure named Kali, and he's walking with his companion, Dwapara. Kali is eagerly heading towards the Swayamvara, and it's just this moment of peak situational irony. The gods are walking away from the finish line, completely satisfied, while Kali is striding right toward it, fully believing he's about to win the race.
Okay, let's dive into this, because we have a really stark contrast here between expectation and reality. Kali arrives with absolute, unquestioning confidence. When the gods stop and ask him where he's headed, he boldly declares his intent to obtain Damayanti. He fully expects to just show up and claim her as his wife. But Sakra, actually, you probably know him better as Indra, the legendary slayer of Vala and Vritra, delivers the ultimate smiling reality check. He just casually informs Kali that Swayamvara is already ended. In our sight, she hath chosen Nala for her husband. It's this crushing, almost dismissive letdown. The prize is gone. And this is exactly where things take a sudden, terrifying turn. Kali, who the source text pointedly refers to as the vilest of the Celestials, well, he doesn't just shrug off this rejection. His divine ego is completely shattered, and he reacts with an intense, irrational, and honestly explosive wrath. Listen to his exact words here. "Since in the presence of the Celestials she hath chosen a mortal for her lord, it is meet that she should undergo a heavy doom." Just let that sink in for a second. Because a mortal man was chosen over the divine beings, Kali is literally demanding total destruction. It isn't just disappointment, it is deeply wounded pride mutating instantly into a thirst for pure vengeance.
But you know, the Celestials? They aren't remotely intimidated by this outburst. They remain completely calm and immediately step in to counter Kali's threat. They explicitly tell him that Damayanti's choice was absolutely not a mistake, and it certainly wasn't an insult to the divine realm. In fact, it was done with their full sanction. The gods essentially act as King Nala's defense attorneys in this moment. They construct an airtight defense of the mortal king, effectively wrapping him in this impenetrable shield of virtue. They pose a rhetorical question to Kali. What woman wouldn't choose a king endowed with such incredible, flawless virtues?
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the gods endorsed a mortal over a celestial in the first place. Let's walk through Nala's spiritual resume exactly as it's laid out by the gods. First off, he's well-versed in all duties and conducts himself with perfect rectitude. He has rigorously studied the four Vedas and the Puranas, those ancient sacred texts that form the very foundation of spiritual knowledge. And he doesn't just read about goodness. He actually lives a life of absolute harmlessness to all creatures. He tells the truth, he is incredibly firm in his vows, and he strictly performs sacrifices in his house according to the ancient ordinances. This is a super crucial detail, because those specific sacrifices deeply gratify the gods. Nala isn't just a good guy, he is quite literally the gold standard of spiritual and religious compliance.
But the gods don't just stop at his religious checklist, they dive deep into his core character. The text actually calls him a tiger among men, noting that he basically resembles a Lokapala, which is a guardian of the world. He embodies truth, forbearance, knowledge, asceticism, purity, and self-control. But his most vital trait, and honestly the thematic focal point of this entire scene, is his perfect tranquility of soul. Nala's deep inner peace and perfect composure stand in sharp, dramatic contrast to the chaotic, explosive rage that is currently completely consuming Kali. It's absolute calm, facing off against an incoming storm. So, because of this perfect virtue, the gods issue a severe, uncompromising warning to Kali. They really don't mince words here. They tell him, The fool that wisheth to curse Nala, bearing such a character, curseth himself, and destroyeth himself by his own act, and sinketh into the wide bottomless pit of hell rife with torments. This isn't just a casual threat either. It's presented as a fundamental cosmic law. Attacking a being of such pure, aligned virtue is basically like punching a mirror. It's a highly destructive act of self-sabotage that will rebound directly onto the attacker, dragging them straight down into hell. Having delivered this absolute truth, the gods figure their job is done. They simply turn around and calmly depart for heaven. They leave Kali standing right there on the road, all alone with his companion Dwapara. And here, folks, is where we really see the dangerous, blinding power of a bruised ego. You would think the very literal, clearly stated threat of a bottomless pit of hell would make someone reconsider their weekend plans, right? It should be the ultimate deterrent. But instantly, Kali's massive entitlement completely overrides all logic, all reason, and all concern for his own cosmic safety.
The very second the gods are out of sight, the sheer irrationality fully takes over. The tension just skyrockets here. Kali turns to his companion and admits, "I am ill able, O Dwapara, to suppress my anger." He physically and mentally cannot let it go. The humiliation of being passed over for a mortal man, even a completely perfect one, burns way too hot in his mind. He completely disregards that divine warning because his desire for immediate vengeance is just so much stronger than his sense of self-preservation. He is actively choosing his anger over his own soul.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how this blind, obsessive rage translates into action. Kali immediately lays out a chilling, highly calculated 4-step plan to systematically dismantle a perfectly virtuous life. Step 1. Possess Nala. He plans to attack the king from the inside out, specifically targeting that perfect tranquility. Step 2. Deprive him of his kingdom, stripping away his earthly power and status. Step 3. End his sport, or his joyful life, with Bhima's daughter, tearing apart the very marriage that sparked this jealousy in the first place. And step 4 is the actual mechanism for this downfall. He tells Dwapara, "Entering the dice, it beholdeth thee to help me." They aren't going to fight him with swords on a battlefield. They're going to use a rigged game of dice to tear down a king. Which brings us to the ultimate question at the heart of this epic source material and the thought I really want to leave you with today. Can a man's perfect virtue actually protect him when the gods themselves rig the dice? We have Nala, a mortal armed with a perfectly tranquil soul and the endorsement of heaven, facing off against Kali, an ancient, raging celestial who was willing to risk a bottomless pit of hell just to get revenge. It's a profound and fascinating look at the vulnerability of human perfection when it goes right up against supernatural sabotage. What actually happens when the game is rigged from the divine level? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this text today. Keep analyzing, keep asking these big questions, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.